This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Hello and welcome to Big Fish. Our guest today is none other than Dr. Paolo Zegna, chairman of Ermenegildo Zegna, a world leader in luxury men's clothing. Dr. Zegna, thank you so much for joining us on Big Fish.
You're welcome. Thank you.
First, let me congratulate you on the flagship store for India, which you opened in Mumbai.
Thank you.
And let me start by asking you first, Louis Vuitton had opened its flagship store in India almost 4 years back. Do you feel like perhaps you're entering India a little late, and what's the initiative to enter it now at this period?
Well, so first of all, we may have to remember that Zegna had his first retail operation in India in Mumbai in 1999, which maybe was too much in advance, because in fact the environment, we were in those days in Crossroad, which we expected to become the luxury mall in Mumbai, which unfortunately didn't turn to be true. But anyhow, it was the time of our first experiences. Then in fact Louis Vuitton made a strong step and established himself in a beautiful location nearby ours. And since then we have started to look for an equally good location.
Okay.
But what really has made a difference and has made us believing we are now getting on time in India is since the new law was approved by the government, allowing foreign companies to have 51% of a stake of a retail operation. We believe India is a very demanding market and is not something that is easy to treat through a local manager. It needs to be deeply followed and very directly followed from the headquarters.
And it's interesting you mentioned this FDI in single brand retailing. Do you wish that it had been in multi-brand retailing? Would it have made your job a little easier?
Listen, we are happy for the time being. We are happy with this approval. I think that in order to bring the spirit and the philosophy and the tradition of the international brands, mono-brand shops are today the best way to do it. Maybe in the future there will be more openness to multi-brand shop, but in order for a brand to establish itself in a country like India, I think that mono-brand shops is the ideal way to come in.
Okay. And on the same context, are you looking at investing or tying up with any Indian companies like Fendi and Louis Vuitton have done, or like Escomars and Escada?
Not for the time being. Let us leave our first experience on our own. Let's see how the retail operation can develop.
Fair enough. And other Italian brands such as Gucci and Versace have already set the blueprint for India. How are you going to distinguish yourself from all these other Italian brands?
The way we plan to distinguish ourselves is through not only through what we bring in terms of product, but is in terms of service, which in my opinion can make a big difference. As I said, the customers are very demanding. We see it from what they require from us in all the cities where they buy Zegna, and we want to bring this service here.
You also mentioned right now, high fashion is usually more partial to women, whereas men's luxury brands such as Hugo Boss or Brioni have not really been that successful in India. Who do you think will lead this luxury premium men's fashion across India now?
Well, hopefully us. We are here to become the reference point for luxury menswear. Okay. And the approach of a boutique like the one we are just opening now is to really demonstrate our interest and our will to become a major player in Mumbai. You know, we have a previous experience of the company into a similar, sort of way similar country like China, and we are leaders today in China because we have done it and we have approached the Chinese market as well as we are now trying to do in India, directly with our people, with a lot of training, with a lot of attention to service, and this has made us extremely successful and leader in China. So there is no reason why we shouldn't achieve the same results in India.
So will your collection line, will it focus on ready-to-wear or made-to-measure?
We have both. Normally, made-to-measure can represent up to 20% of the turnover of a shop. So 80% is ready-to-wear, and these things that you can really buy and
Right.
take home right away.
Other brands such as Hugo Boss, Chanel, Cartier, they've already established their presence in India, and in fact they're in expansion mode right now. How will you counter that?
In fact, we consider the opening of Mumbai the first step.
Okay.
Hopefully soon followed by a second one in Delhi. But in the end, is not the rush in opening shops, which is our major goal. We want to be successful in each of the stores we are opening. And we want to demonstrate that the Indian customers can really count on the service and on the atmosphere of every single store we open. The more successful we will be in Mumbai, the more we will be pushed to open other stores in the other cities, provided that we find the right location, because the proper locations today are the most difficult part of the game.
Of course. And something that's unique to Zegna is the fact that you have your own manufacturing units across Turkey, Mexico, and China as well. Any plans to set up production units in India?
Time being, we have no plans to open any production facility or having any involvement in production in India. But as I said, once you enter a market, I think that you have to be open to analyze what's the evolution of things. And being of the high cost in Europe, it could well be that in the future some of the products, why not, could be made outside of Europe as well.
Zegna's last store was in Argentina. So you seem to be having an increasing focus on emerging markets, but almost 40% of your sales still come in from Europe. So is geographical diversification really imperative?
I believe so. Where we see most of development is from the new countries. Apart from China, which I have already named, we are looking with the same attention to Latin America, to Middle East. The east of Europe is a third area I also mentioned, and then India is a country that we are expecting a lot from. All in all these countries, in my opinion, will get more and more space in the total Zegna turnover in the future.
Okay. So since you're focusing on emerging markets, if you take the example of, say, China, you've done really well there. But do you think there's any danger of sort of replicating the entry strategy that you had for China into a country like India, where the sort of level of aspiration buying is not really there?
But listen, if we go back to when we started in China, we could have said exactly the same things.
Okay.
Then we saw the market, and we are expecting India to follow the same speed of development.
Right.
And I'm sure with such a high population, with such a degree of development, that the Indian economy is actually producing, I'm sure that maybe not and never at the stage of China, but India will become an extremely strong player in the worldwide economy.
Okay, that's an interesting point, because I read somewhere that Leonardo Ferragamo, he had mentioned that Italian luxury companies, Italian retailers are rather slow to react to emerging markets, and that India represents an opportunity to make amends. Do you agree with that as well?
It is true that, in fact, maybe a lot of European companies have been a little bit selfish or a little bit snobbish about not considering these new realities coming up. And maybe now that the sales on the developed world are getting a little bit stronger and more difficult, and with not the same rate of development that they had in the past, maybe the people are compelled to look around and to look at alternatives.
On that note, Dr. Zegna, we'll take a very short break, and we'll be back and keep discussing premium branding strategies in India as well as abroad. So stay tuned to Big Fish.